We've talked a lot about culture recently, about what it is and how you really grow and cultivate and develop it. But what are some instances of what culture is not? And what are some questions that can really help your team to build the culture that you're looking for? Well, that's what I'm looking forward to dive into today. Hope you are doing well. Thanks for checking in here for just a little bit. I'm excited to dive into this because culture really matters. And like I said, we've talked about it a bunch of times, but culture is not an accident. It's fought for, it's intentional, it's curated, and it's tangible. Hope you are doing well today, friends. Thomas Joyner here with Business on Purpose. About a year ago, we were looking to expand our coaching staff, and I stuck my neck out for a buddy. And so he begins the interview process, which is super lengthy, and he sat in on some coaching calls, team meetings, and went through our vision story, and I'll never forget it. He calls me on the phone. He said, "Thomas, y'all's culture is ridiculous. I can literally feel it when I'm on the phone with anyone at Business on Purpose." Now, the point of that, it's not to brag on us, and we got a great team. We've got great people that really are trying to build an amazing culture. But it's to say that culture should be felt by everyone who comes in contact with you. And what I'll say one step further is your culture is felt by everyone that comes in contact with you. It should be what you hear when you're standing in line at a restaurant and you kind of overhear somebody mentioning, your business. It's that feeling that all employees have when they step inside your building, and it's the feeling left for your clients after they work with you. Now, we've spoken a ton on what culture is, and if you want to go back to some previous podcasts and listen to some of that, you'll get a great idea of what culture is. In fact, Scott's going to put one on here recently, really talking about culture being a biology term and your inputs mattering so much. But I want to clear something up before I give you a few questions on how to really cultivate a healthy culture. And I want to talk about what culture is not. First thing I would say is culture is not 100% five-star reviews. No, that's external. And there's too many just miserable people out there who go out of their way to nitpick every little thing, and they have nothing better to do with their days than tell the world about only getting 2 pumps of peppermint in their coffee instead of the 3 that they ordered. It's the worst. It's a travesty. You cannot measure your culture solely off of what reviews are. Now, it may be a piece of it. It may be representative of it. But don't get trapped. If your reviews are not perfect, don't take that as 100% indictment against your business's culture. Second thing I would say, culture is not more vacation days. Yes, that may be a part of it, right? We rest after we're exhausted. We take turns running and running and running until we hit empty. And then foolishly, we try to figure out a way to get back to a full tank by taking a long weekend. When in reality, we probably run from half a tank to empty all day instead of being proactive and getting out ahead of it and running from a full tank to a half tank. That makes a big, big difference. Culture, it's proactive. It's taking vacation when you need it instead of waiting until you're completely burned out. Third thing I would say, culture is not a finished product. It's not an arrival. There's no app that you can just type in the destination and arrive. No, it's fluid. It's constantly shifting, and as soon as a new project starts, you know what? You've got to fight to protect it. As soon as a new client shows up, you have to lean on it and prove it again. But the moment you think you've arrived, you're one step away from the culture you worked so hard to build, crumbling and falling apart. So today, we're going to answer some questions internally. I'm going to ask you to be honest. If you've got a great culture, yes, awesome. What are the little tweaks that you can use to make it better? If you got a really bad culture, weak, crappy culture, be honest. Do you forget people's birthdays? Do you work too many hours and burn out your team? Is everybody just angry at each other, shouting back and forth? Maybe your team does the least amount of work possible and people just sulk when asked to help. I don't know, but it starts with being honest. So let's have an open conversation. Before we dive into 6 questions for your culture, I want to highlight something we've built out that I'd like for us all to build before the end of the year, and we call it our culture calendar. And so, you see, we've realized that without writing it down and planning it out and being highly intentional, our culture fails. So we've built a spreadsheet that informs us when to do the things we want to do. Things like team meetings, retreats, birthdays, anniversaries, onboarding and continued learning calls and check-ins, vision days quarterly. Everything we need to do to build the culture that we want is represented in this spreadsheet. So what needs to go on your culture calendar? I'm going to go quickly through some questions, and there's no way to digest all of these right now. So stop the video, write it down real quick, and come back. Maybe at your next 6 team meetings, you tackle one question a week. Maybe you show this quick little video and say, hey, let's watch this and let's talk about our culture. They're going to take more than 30 seconds to really figure out. Be honest. All right, question number 1. What is our culture today? Be honest. If you had to say what doing business with you feels like and what it feels like to come in for your employees, what is your culture today? Question number 2. How would our last 5 clients describe working with us? That one hits pretty close to home right there. You get people in. What would they say about it? Would they say, man, we left excited. They just nailed it, knocked it out of the park? Or would they say, I really wouldn't recommend them. Their salespeople were frustrating and not excited. Their communication fell through. But what would the last 5 clients describe? How would they describe working with you? Question 3, what do we do year round to ensure we're building a positive culture that people want to be a part of? Again, look back at our example of a content calendar. I can send you the template if you want to see it. Team meetings, retreats, onboardings, trainings, production meetings, everything that you do. Team lunches, I don't know. Whatever you do to ensure you're building a positive culture that people want to be a part of. 4th question I would ask, what else could we do? That's a broad question. If we could sit here and plan out the rest of the year and say, hey, if we do all these things, this could be a fun, awesome place to work. What else could we do? 5th question, is there anything pulling us away or distracting us from the culture that we want? That's a big one. What are we being distracted by? Are we too busy? Do we just not like each other and just need to go get some time away from work? No, but is there anything distracting us from the culture that we want? Last question. Is there another business out there that we would like to be more like? What about it are we drawn to? What do we need to ask about it? Because I can guarantee you one thing, if there's a culture that you envy, if there's a culture that you want to be like, that culture didn't get there by accident. No, they worked for it. It's intentional. And if they were to look at you and say, well, it just happened, they're lying. Because you have to peel the curtain back just a little bit to look underneath and see what they're doing on a daily, a weekly, a monthly, quarterly, and a yearly basis to build that positive culture. These questions, they matter, y'all. They absolutely matter. They help build your culture into something you can be proud of. So take time with your team outside of this podcast to dive in. I think you'll be glad a year from now when people are sticking around a long, long time, and if they get an offer for a raise, they may choose to stay because they know that the culture over there is not worth that extra $2-3 an hour, or extra $5-10 grand a year. No, because they're valued in being a part of your team, and that makes all the difference. Thanks, guys. Hope y'all have a great week.